Hey guys, this is Marc Goldberg from Marc Vlogs Watches, and no, this is not a mole, it is the windscreen for my lavalier microphone. Now, before we get started with the meat and potatoes of this video, let's go right into the quick fist watch check. Hold your horses. Here she comes. Here it is. Quick fist watch check. Guys, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, I hope there's going to be a second and third date, so please go ahead and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I have lots more to share with you. If you've been with me a while, thank you so much for subscribing. And today, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I am wearing probably what is the most horologically significant and undoubtedly the finest watch I own, which is the Rolex Skydweller in glorious two-tone. Skydweller. I actually fiended this watch since it came out in gold, and ironically, I don't think I can quite afford steel. So here I am, stuck with two-tone. Okay, so today there are two purposes for this video. The first is to inform you that I am going to be selling the Omega Seamaster SMP. And in a little bit, I will include some video and some still photographs of that watch. But let me just address two things for this video. One, why am I selling that specific watch? And it calls into question a greater issue, which I have been reading about me in the comments. People have been asking and wondering, Marc, are you a flipper? Are you a serious commitment issue? Are you a flipper? And if you are a flipper, is it due to commitment issues, or are you, constantly making a profit on the watch? In fact, are you driving the Rolex shortage with your constant Rolex videos and your so-called flipping? So first, let's take a quick look at the Omega Seamaster SMP 42mm gray silver dial with blue bezel. Let's look at this precious, beautiful watch. My favorite thing about the Omega is that dial, and then we get into the display case back, which is a thing of beauty. I just wish it didn't have skeleton hands, but everything else is beautiful. I'm the original owner, and I wore it very lightly, but it does have this tiny microscopic hairline scratch that I've outlined here. The bezel action is very precise, the alignment is perfect, but the bezel action is lighter than a Submariner. The clasp is every bit as good as a sub in its own way. You can see here that it is an adjustable clasp. And unlike the Submariner glide lock clasp, the Omega clasp can be resized while you're wearing the watch. You don't have to remove the watch in order to resize the bracelet, and that's a tremendous advantage. The dial is amazing, and it's constantly changing in every light, and the bracelet is very nicely done. And of course, we have the display case back, which you can see here, and you can look right into the beating heart of this watch. I really like this watch. The SMP, that Omega, man, it has an awful lot to recommend it. I think for me, it's those skeleton hands, as I said. They're beautiful, they're functional, but for whatever reason, I'm a guy who just prefers sword hands. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to it for me, it's because of the stupidest reason. It's because of the lume. I have a little flashlight, a UV flashlight that I use to charge my watches. And I really like to be able to read them at night in the movies, wherever. I'm not a diver, so honestly, this is a ridiculous personal habit. I suppose we all have them. My ridiculous personal habit, or one of them, is that I want to be able to read my lume at night. Okay, so a watch with poor lume is a killer for me. This is about as light as I want lume to go. And Chromalight doesn't glow crazy bright, but it glows like a really long time. And these indices in those hands, for a kind of a thin, narrow index and hour marker and thin hands, it's actually loomed up very, very well. So this Rolex is something that it's at the bottom of the category in terms of lume, but it's not a dress watch to the point where I couldn't read it at night. And honestly, if I couldn't, that would disturb me. So I want my watches to be legible in lume. I want them to have at least 100 meters of water resistance, and I really want to be able to read them, at night. And ideally, there's a turning bezel. This one doesn't have that. Anyway, I digress. Guys, it's the skeleton hands on the Omega. So that's part one of why I want to sell it. Part two is, although I really like that watch, it has so many things to recommend it. That case back, oh my God, the clasp. It's beautiful, the dial, holy cow, it's mesmerizing. But I suppose in a perfect world, I would just keep it. But this is not a perfect world. Here's the scenario. I feel like I have too much money invested in watches. Like I have this pool of dollars I just bought and bought and bought. And so the value of the number of dollars that I invested, it got up right to about here where I feel like economically I've just about had my nose above water. And so there comes this point when to sort of recuperate some of the money in order to buy something new becomes kind of important. So am I a flipper? I don't consider myself a flipper. A flipper is, let me define the term. To me, a flipper is somebody who buys watches cheap in order to turn them around and make a profit. So somebody who has like some kind of amazing relationship with an authorized dealer of Rolex and can buy the new Batman, the new Pepsi, the Hulk, and the ceramic Daytona, and purchases those watches and then resells them immediately at a profit. That's a flipper. In fact, interestingly, I just read, I'm a member of a lot of Facebook groups, and I am not going to out or identify this guy or even this group, but not that long ago, I was reading one of the Facebook forums that has to do with watches, and there was a guy in a panic in there, and here was his situation. He had purchased like 5 or 6 really super hard to get Rolexes from his authorized dealer within the last year and a half, like 6 of them, and they were all the ones that I mentioned and other ones. And they had in a watch that he wanted, which I think was a blue steel Sky Dweller. You can purchase that watch for, what is it, like 12 something, and you could resell it for like 18 to a dealer who can then resell it for 22. So there's money to be made in this for the serial flipper. Why was this guy in a panic? Because he had flipped every one of those watches that he had bought from the authorized dealer, and what the authorized dealer told him via email was that the store owner wanted to see a photograph of him with the collection of everything that they had sold him prior to selling him the blue steel Sky Dweller. And he was going crazy because he didn't have any of those watches, and he was asking people could they like take pictures of watches, and send them to him, and then he would try and assemble them, or did anybody have advice? And people were saying, well, you could Photoshop the collection and, and so forth. And I was thinking to myself, serves you right. Serves you right. I am not the guy who is responsible for the Rolex shortage by buying all the Rolexes at, retail and then reselling them higher. That's not me. I'm not in the position. I don't have that relationship with the authorized dealer, number one. And number two, look, it's not a shady business practice. It's a legitimate business practice, I suppose, but it's just not my style. I'm a dog trainer and I'm an author. Let Dogs Be Dogs is the book that I co-authored. Buy it at a bookstore near you or on Amazon or listen to it on Audible, but support the channel. Let Dogs Be Dogs. At any rate, this is how I make my living, that and training dogs. If you need a dog behavior consult, get a hold of me. My address is in the comments. So, no, I'm not really a flipper. Now, the Omega, here's why I want to sell it. I want my money back out of the Omega, specifically because I have purchased a new watch. It is incoming, and I used new dollars to pay for the Omega, but I would sort of like to pay myself back. In other words, I took money from my right pocket and I put it into my left pocket, and now I want it out of my left pocket and I want to put it back into the right pocket. Does that make any sense? Guys, if you've ever gone to a bar, counted your money, right? You go to the bar and you go, look, I'm going to the bar, I'm not going with any more than $50, and you're trying to track how much you're spending, that night. That's a little bit what I'm doing with watches. If I'm not careful, I will just add new money, and then I will find myself maybe in trouble, financial difficulty. Now, I'm sure that some of this is psychological because, what I am not crying is poor. I am not super wealthy either. I need to work, okay? There are people who just don't need to work. I would not be one of those people. Retirement age, I hear about retirement age. If Social Security sends me an email and says retirement age is this, I think to myself, what is that? I'm one of these people like, you're gonna have to peel the leash and the watch out of my cold dead fingers. I'm going down fighting, people. As long as I can move and walk, please, dear God, let me continue to work. But what I want is some of my money back. So what I want is some of my money back, and in order to be able to afford to continue buying new watches periodically, I have to sell something. So the Omega is going, and there is something new, something interesting, something very out of character for me incoming that I'll be making a video on soon. Do I feel like I have to own a watch in order to video review it? No, not really. I can do it sometimes from pictures. Sometimes I just have thoughts and opinions, but typically I like to have been able to, I like to be able to share the buying experience, the owner experience, the unboxing, the daily wear, like this thing, guys, I'm one of these people, I'm a little funny about watch bracelets. I love bracelets, but I need them a little adjustable because my wrist swells and contracts, and it's kind of a humid day here in the Chicago area, and all of a sudden this thing is feeling tight. So let's take it off, and let me just quickly show you the Easy Link system right there under that finger, and I'm going to pop that link open, and I've just expanded by that half. Oh, hopefully you can see in the light here, but I've just opened it up a half link. That just opened this watch up another 5 millimeters. So it's no longer feeling, like overly tight on the wrist. Do I have commitment issues with watches? I kind of do, but I have been accused of being a serial flipper. Now, what I did was I sold out of a bunch of Breitlings. You go through phases, people, and I went through Breitling phases. Now, in the Breitling phase, I bought a grand total of 4. I still have 1. I sold these 3. I kept this one. This is the Breitling World Timer. The other 3 were all dive watches or GMT watches. I bought those Breitlings so carefully, so cheap on eBay is where I got them. I'm the master of eBay in some senses. But anyway, I got those Breitling at good prices on eBay, and therefore I was able to resell them at good prices on eBay without losing hardly any money. In fact, I think I would say when everything was said and done, I had broken even. I have been accused of flipping Rolexes, but I have sold precisely 1 Rolex in my entire life. All I do is buy the damn things. I sold a 16600, which is a pre-ceramic Sea Dweller. I still own every other Rolex that I have ever owned, including a 16613 two-tone bluesy, which I have offered for sale in the past. I didn't quite get my price, which I think I'm glad about, because what I'm noticing is that two-tone watch, it's not quite vintage. What is it, like 1999, 2000? So it's it's in that awkward stage between old but not old enough to be considered vintage. But the price of that thing is inching itself upwards, so it's not hurting anything in my safe. It can live there for a while longer. But I resent the implication, people, that I am a flipper of Rolexes, because I have sold 1 in my life. All I ever do is buy them. Now, in order to fund that, I have sold off all those Breitlings. I'm now going to sell off the Omega. And yeah, I kind of am beginning to have a bit of a Rolex-centric collection. That being said, here's the final point that I want to make. You might suppose that I'm some kind of giant watch snob, Rolex, people only Rolex. Well, I am highly well aware, and you people have a good way, some of you people have a good way of reminding me in the comments. I am well aware that Rolex is not the be-all and end-all of horology, that it's a mass-produced luxury item. I'm aware of that. You have watches that far exceed it in horological level, value, price. Patek Philippe. This thing is probably largely built by robots that do everything. $1 trillion investment in robots, no doubt, done extremely well. But Patek Philippe is more or less hand assembled, by an individual watchmaker. H. Moser, FP Journe. There are brands that just make a mass-produced Rolex look like a mass-produced Seiko in some senses. So I'm not that snobby. I just like what I like, and hopefully you'll understand that, and you're probably the same way too. But I got a couple of watches here that I want to show you, and these are watches that I kind of love. This is the Seiko Blue Lagoon. It's a Seiko Turtle. This watch is available in iterations that range from like $180 all the way up through $600 or $700. This one's probably right around $550, $550. And I really, really like it, okay? Even with its original Seiko clasp, that a lot of people seem to complain about this, bracelet. But this is one of my watches that I'm keeping, not selling. In fact, I'll do a review on it for you good people. Second cheaper watch that I own, love, and enjoy is an all-metal G-Shock. I really like this thing. It's got micro adjustments, and it's got a milled out clasp, which I really appreciate. Yeah. And then here is my ball. You are looking at Marc's blue ball. See if you can get a good look at that. This is the Ball World Timer Day Date. It's a highly modified ETA. I got this new, guys, and it's a diver also. So it's got just a unique, weird set of complications available to it that appeals to me. And I paid $1,200 for this, that's all. But that was back when Ball, I bought it on pre-order, and it used to be that Ball watch did amazingly good money off, like 50% off pre-offers, pre-sale offers, if you were on their email list. But what I've noticed is now they're offering like 20, 30%, something like that. Ball watch, I do like your product. I think you're kind of overpriced at retail. Pre-sale used to be the way to go, but I think they had so much success with their pre-sales that they started to jack the pre-sale price up. So this is the last watch that they offered at a reasonable price, but I have a whopping $1,200 in this, and I don't know what I could sell it for. Honestly, I'm not even sure, but I'm not selling it. I like it. It's got tritium tubes, and it's got a really cool bracelet, heavily milled out. So I hope that helps you understand me slightly better. Now that I'm, like somebody who you might occasionally watch on YouTube, I want you to understand that I appreciate your being here. If you have subscribed to my channel, I want to thank you for doing that. You might not agree with everything I say, but thanks for including me in the mix of your horological gurus. You really should know that I appreciate you, and I thank you for being here. Even when you are crabby with me in the comments, I still appreciate you being here. If this is one of my first videos that you have watched, well, what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, buddy, and let's do this again. I've got a lot more thoughts, watches, and interesting sort of stuff to share with you, and I'd like you to come along this journey with me. So, guys, if you want to buy my Omega or talk to me about it, well, my email address is in the comments of this video, in the description. And in the meantime, this is Goldberg, peacing out. Thank you so much for having been with me. Rolex, but then all those other things that I showed you. I'm not a snob. I just like what I like. I'm probably going to sleep in this one tonight. What do you think, guys?
Paint the sky.